Good morning, Quadcopter 101 here with another neat review. Today we're reviewing the Eachine Blade 185. Now the 185 is a little micro racer intended for beginners in the world of FPV, not beginner flyers. Don't even think of trying to learn to fly with this quadcopter. This is for people that already know to fly, how to fly, but want to transition into FPV flying. This one might be a nice one to go into, but one thing you got to keep in mind that most racers require some fiddling with, okay? Particularly with its flight control software. This one here uses Naze32 board with using Cleanflight configuration software, flight configuration software. If you want to do that, you have to go in there and have a little bit of what I like to call programming logic skills. You have to know, you need to have, this has to be working with this, and this has to be working with that. You know, these normally don't fly well right out of the box. There are some racers out there for intermediate flyers and beginner flyers into the world of FPV that require minimal configuration. But most of the Eachine racers, you need to go in there and fiddle with the software a bit. And I did with this one, not a lot. You know, this is almost out of the box. What things I did configure is I did not update the firmware, first off. I don't believe in updating firmware unless you run into issues with the stock firmware that you get out of the box. Another reason I did not update the firmware is this comes with a lot of peripheral accessories to it, peripheral devices, like a GPS, like on-screen display, and a barometer. Okay, if you go in and change, update firmware, sometimes that requires a lot of adjustments in the configuration software to get your peripherals working again, and I didn't want to do that. So this is running again with stock firmware that came with it, version Cleanflight 1-11-0. Now I mentioned the features that this comes with just briefly. Yes, this has barometer. Yes, this has GPS system built into it. A lot of people, you know, the old style racers say, oh, you don't need a GPS, but GPS can come in handy. It tells you how fast you're flying, okay? It also can, if you have on-screen display, which this one does, include a little pointer to show you on your goggles which way is home, you know, how to get back, you know, if you get lost out there, and it can be easy to become disoriented while flying, which way to turn to bring the quadcopter back to you. That's what you can do with GPS on this. You can also, which I did, program it in Cleanflight to fly this with position hold. So I'll discuss that shortly when I go over the controller. Let's talk about the propellers real quick. The stock propellers that came with this were very, very difficult to get on. In the mail, I received some unsolicited Gemfans, and I'm assuming they came from Banggood, who realized the props on these are kind of hard, the stock props on these are kind of hard to get in. These are 40-45 bullnose that I got on here right now from Gemfan. Hopefully these are much better than the stock propellers. They were much easier to get on, I'll tell you that. They fit. So again, since you know the only racers that I got recently came from Banggood, I'm assuming that these 40-45s were shipped by Banggood also. So if you get one of these, you might want to consider also purchasing some 40-45 bullnose props. They're dirt cheap. You know, you're going to want them anyways, probably, after your first wreck with the stock props. You can get the stock props on there, but boy, it's a son of a you-know-what. So I don't recommend using them. Another thing I need to mention about this is the clearance provided by these propellers, especially to the battery, is on the millimeter scale. I mean, very, very short clearance. Make sure you have this battery firmly secured in there. You might also want to include a piece of Velcro in there that will ensure that the battery does not come out of its position to avoid running into the propellers in flight. That could be bad. So I got mine in there. I'm going to push this back a little bit more, actually. Also, the power cables off of the battery, make sure they don't run into the propellers also. I got the ready to fly version, which comes with an Eachine i6, which is a branded FlySky i6 controller. The settings in Cleanflight out of the box had or the controller itself had these switches assigned to control the quadcopter. I wanted to use switch C and switch D, which comes with 3-position switch and a 2-position switch instead of these 2-position switches over here. The reason being, I wanted to assign, again, use this to assign switch C to assign the angle modes, or not the angle modes, I'm sorry, the flight control modes of the quadcopter. In particular, I went into Cleanflight and programmed the top one for angle, the center one for horizon flying, and the bottom one, and this is going to be sacrilege to a lot of racer people out there, the GPS position hold. Yes, some people might want to consider, since this does have a GPS on it, using that GPS to fly the quadcopter. So I did include a GPS position hold. I also included barometer altitude hold for all 3 of these, for angle, for horizon, and for GPS position hold. So all 3 of these are going to use that. And the right one, I wanted to set the throttle hold, but for some reason it's not working right now the way I wanted to program it, but I'm going to fly it anyways today. Let's see, to start the motors, to unlock it, you bring the throttle down and to the right, that's to unlock it, I'm sorry, and to lock it, you bring it down and to the left. So I think that's about it for now. Let's go into a flight and see how it performs. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is, I want to make sure my camera's recording. I have my Runcam attached to the top of this to provide some video, in addition to the on-screen display video feed. Runcam is recording. I'm going to take off my lens cap off of the quadcopter and put it in my pocket. And let's put this on a more flat surface than where I've got it right there. About right there. That should be good. Turning on the transmitter. And again, double checking the props are clear of the quadcopter's battery and wires. And plugging in the quadcopter's power. Okay, we are bound. Now the first thing I want to look, I'm going back over to my FPV monitor, and I'm checking the OSD information that we're getting here. Okay, we are in stabilized mode. Checking the switches, going to center position horizon mode, bottom switch stabilized, and it's also got GPS hold. So that's one thing, when you do the configuration of this software, of the Cleanflight software, and you want to include GPS or barometer, you have to assign it to one of the flight modes. Particularly, you have to assign it to either stabilized mode, which is angle mode, or horizon mode. You just can't turn on the GPS in the software. You have to also remember to include that with it. So we're letting it bind right now, and also I'm letting the satellites lock on right now. We got 7 satellites. We're ready to go. Okay, with that in mind, we are going to take off in angle mode first and do a short flight around in angle mode. Then I am going to go into GPS position hold mode because I want to make sure that works. So unlocking. Okay. Getting it into the air. Well, it's rather stabilized. Let's fly it around. It's actually very stable. Okay, let's go out a bit. Put a little more speed onto it. Now, I forgot to mention, in this angle mode, I also got altitude hold turned on. So that makes it even more stable. So you can do that, especially if you're a beginner or intermediate learning in the world of FPV flying. Here, let me bring that in for a second, since this is actually working very well. How about that position hold? The barometer is working very well, is what I'm saying. The altitude hold on this. Okay, I'm going to go into, let's bring it a little forward of me too first before I do this. But position hold, let's see. Position hold is on. I don't know. Well, is it holding its position? I don't think so. Going back to, that needs a little work, the adjustment of the GPS on that. But in angle mode right now, it seems to be working very well. But what I wanted to do, again, woo, bounced it. What I wanted to do, okay, make sure my antenna's on there good, is adjust my video up a little bit more because I want to go faster. Okay, I moved it to a less dusty area with the hopes that it's going to reduce the dust getting into the gears. Or not the gears, but into the motors. I don't want sand getting into the motor. So unlocking again, going back airborne again, and I want to check my view. On-screen display is working fine. Now normally I'd be flying with this, but my wife's not here with me today in OSD mode, or with goggles. So I'm flying this line of sight. Let's send it out and see how fast this thing will go. Well, that barometer is holding it rather steady in altitude hold. Again, remember, you need to turn on, instead of just turning on the barometer in Cleanflight, you also have to assign it to either angle or horizon mode. You just don't turn on the barometer along with the GPS. I'll figure that one out in a future flight. Let it go for a second. I forgot to check. What's my battery level? Let me look in there. Why not? 10.7, 10.6 volts already? I don't know what the deal is, folks. This is the first time I've charged it, so I'm going to land it. I heard a beep beep, and that means warning of voltage. But before I put it down, this is just the first flight. 10.6 volts already. Just been flying for a little bit. And we'll land it there. Okay, and locking. So, okay, it was a kind of a short flight. I thought I did charge that battery up before coming out here, but this is the first flight. I was only in angle mode for that whole flight. I tried the GPS position whole flight for a few seconds there, but it wasn't holding its position very well. I'll fiddle with the settings a little bit more. Again, I was kind of surprised at the 10.7 volts showing up on the on-screen display. It was so short, you know, very short flight. But I'll give it a try. I'll recharge that battery and we'll take it out for another flight, maybe tomorrow or the next day. So I hope you enjoyed this first flight of the Eachine Blade 185. Another thing I want to talk about is the propellers that come with this are so, I don't think they're actually meant for this quadcopter, but I got them on, but it was tight. Very hard to get them on, to screw them on properly. So keep that in mind, folks. You're going to have a tough time getting them on here. I recommend getting some Gemfan 4045 bullnose props to replace the stock props that come with this, because the stock props are indeed difficult to get on this quadcopter. Additionally, you need to go into the menus to set the failsafe on this, and to do such, to access the menus on these rebranded versions, you have to hold both of these pitch buttons inward while simultaneously turning on the transmitter. And then you will have access to the menus by holding down the OK button in order to remap the switches, which you will need to do, and to set the failsafe. So, other than that, it's a basic FPV quadcopter with on-screen display, and I want to demonstrate that on-screen display by going into flight. First off, I am going to start off the flight flying visually for about a minute or two, just to show the quadcopter flying around close in, and then I'm going to switch to goggles. And I did bring some goggles with me today. Let me show you. These are the Eachine EV800s. It's 800 by 480 resolution display, automatic channel scanning to find the channel for you. Actually, a pretty nice set of goggles, and I got these courtesy of Banggood. So I want to try those out today too. So we're going to do some goggle flying also for once with a racer. Hope you enjoy this flight. Let's go into it. Okay, we've been waiting for satellite lock. It's taking a bit to get satellites today. It's probably not a good day for satellites because I've already flown this with the satellites and they do lock on. If we don't, oh well. We're going to fly without satellites then. So unlocking, and I think we're ready to go. And let me, no, we're not ready to go. I haven't set my timer yet. Setting the timer. I'm going to fly for about 2 minutes in the beginning here. And then I'm going to throw on the goggles, and we'll try it with goggles after about 2 minutes flight time. Hopefully by then we'll have satellite lock. So unlocking the quadcopter, and away we go. Trimming it. Needs some more trim. Okay, let's fly it around with that trim. Yeah, it's somewhat stable. Let's bring it in close so you can see it. So yeah, it's stable. A little forward trim needed. Two. How's that trim? And we'll try a little angle mode flying first. I got my wife with me today, by the way. And the reason being, again, I want to fly with goggles. And we are in angle mode. You're seeing how it flies. Now again, it's got a barometer on it. It really helps hold the altitude. I don't know if you can see that, folks, but that's a good job of the altitude hold on this. Okay, let's try a punch up. Not a lot of punch, especially carrying the camera. Okay, that's 2 minutes. Let's try it with goggles. I'm going to bring it inboard, and we're going to try the goggles on it. I'll put it down right about there. Bumpity bumpity. Okay, goggles going on. We'll go for another flight. Okay, as you can see, I have goggles on. We're going to fly this with goggles now, unlocking the quadcopter and going up. Hope you enjoy this flight. My wife's keeping an eye on the quadcopter as I fly. Very nice reception. Nice and jiggly. I could see I need to mount that camera better, but yeah, that camera's jiggling. Jiggling a lot. I have sufficient satellites now to see the arrow pointing its way home, which isn't doing very good. Okay, and my voltage is getting a little bit low too.
Honey, there's airplane coming. Or it's going down.
Okay, I'm bringing it back to where it is.
Bring it back. Not going down.
Okay, and I'm going back to visual because it's way too jiggly. Bringing it back in. And here we come back in for a landing. Yeah, the camera on this needs to be adjusted. I can see that right now. So landing it. So that was the first flight, actually the second flight I've had of the this one, the Blade 185. The GPS locks in a little bit late on this thing. I need to see about doing actually compass calibration, and I guess would help with the particular GPS, so that GPS locks on faster and has a better lock on, because I didn't like the way that arrow was pointed. Let me put this down here, and I'm plugging this to be safe here. But overall, interesting. What I did like though is the altitude hold seems to work very well in this, in angle mode, especially if you want to maintain stable altitude. It seems to work with this. Again though, the camera, I don't know why that was shaking so much. It seems to be in there, well mounted, but it got a lot of vibration there from the props. I don't know if others are experiencing that or not, but we'll see. So all in all, that's the first flight of the Eachine 185 Blade. Hope you enjoyed this flight. This is Quadcopter 101. Let me get a nice thumbnail with the peak in the background. Signing out.